Daf Mem Beis Amid Beis will begin Daf Mem Beis Amid Aleph, 4 lines from the bottom. Continuing on with the different effects of in terms of health on different types of foods. Ton Rabbanon, we learned the Brisa Shleisha Dvar Mar Ben Azazel. There are 3 things that increase the zevel. They increase the waste when a person relieves himself. And they bend the person's posture, meaning they sap his strength. And they remove 1/500th of his eyesight. These are the 3 things: pas kibar, coarse bread, v'shecher chadash, and fresh beer, v'yerek chai, and raw vegetables. Ton Rabbanon shleisha dvar mematim ezazel, but there are 3 things that have the opposite effect. The mematim the zevel, v'zaykim ekayma, they make his posture erect, they give him strength, and they meirin esainaim, and they improve his eyesight. Elohein pas nekiah, refined bread, basar shamin, fatty meat, v'yain yash, and old wine. So on the first category that we said that has a detrimental effect, one of the categories that we said over there was the yerek chai. It says the raw vegetables. So Rashi explains that they're only if they're eaten in large quantities. For instance, he says like radishes or onions. That's when it has that effect, but not when it has they're eaten in small quantities. So in the category over here that has a beneficial effect, it says that pas nekiah, refined bread. So pas nekiah, the Gemara explains the smita. It's baked from flour, fine flour. Basar shamen, fatty meat, is referring to tzfirta deloy iftach. It's from a young female goat that has never given birth. Yain Yoshan, old wine, otekatiki, means old, very old, meaning not from before the current year. Kol miladamalhai kashalhai, and generally speaking, anything that is beneficial for one thing but has a detrimental effect on something else. Or the kashalhai malhai, and something that has a detrimental effect on one part of the body in one area, and there's conversely has a beneficial effect on a different area. Bar mizanik ve'la, except for fresh ginger, pilpula, rifta, and long peppers, a pas nekiah, and refined bread, or basar shamin, and fatty meat, v'yain yashan, the malva l'kuliguf. It has a beneficial effect for the entire body. So returning to the Mishnah lists certain items that have chometz added to it, or they have some chometz ingredient to it, and therefore the Isurim are involved with these types of food. They have the relevant Isurim. So one of the lists are Sheikh Ramadai, that type of beer. So why does it have chometz? Generally speaking, in those days, the beer was made from dates, not from barley. Nowadays, beer is chometz. But in those days, generally speaking, it was made from dates. Why would it be there for chometz? The Ramo Bey may sorry, because this type of beer is because they add barley to it. So therefore, it has this chometz additive to it. The chometz ha'adaimi, and the chometz of vinegar from edom. The shadu bey, sorry, it's also because they put barley into it. Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, but chiluk shel mevin nesach miYehuda. Originally, at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, they brought the nesachim, the wine that was used for the nesachim, this be'er was from the grapes, from the wine of Yehuda. Lo hayenim shel Yehuda machmetz. It had a special bracha, and it did not turn into chometz and vinegar. It didn't sour. Until they put barley into it. But naturally, without the barley additive, it would not turn to chometz, to vinegar. And this vinegar that they had from putting in the barley, they would call it chometz stam. But nowadays, after the Churban, this bracha was now removed from Yehuda. This bracha now was given to Edom, the descendants of Esav. And their wine did not sour until they put into it barley. And that's why it was called now chometz adomi, because now this wine, the wine had the bracha from Edom, they had the bracha, The vinegar would only turn to vinegar, it wouldn't sour on its own. It would only sour when they put into barley into it. L'kaim mashenemar. So this that we see when there's a bracha for Yehuda, there's a bracha for Klal Yisrael, and the bracha is not by Edom. And conversely, when there's a bracha by Edom, there's no bracha by Yisrael. The kaim mashenemar emola hacharib. It says that I will fill that from the one that is desolate, from the one that was desolate, I will now a mola. I'll fill it up. I'll raise it up. Meaning the Navi is saying that Sur, which was Edom at that time, Sur will be filled, will be raised up from the destruction of the Yidden of Klal Yisrael. So we learn out that in Amalazu, Charvazu, the Imalazu, Charvazu, that they're polar opposites. The bracha is by one, then not by the other. So if it's Malazu, if there's by Seir, by Edom, if they're filled, they're raised up, it's because at the expense, there's no bracha by Klal Yisrael. If there's a bracha by Klal Yisrael, then the bracha is not by Edom. For Nachmar Yitzchak, a different source for this concept, it says Elohim Yamaz. That it says in reference to Yaakov and Esau, Elohim Yamaz. Then one kingdom will be strong, be stronger than the other one. When there's one is strong, the other one will be weak. When one is weak, the other one is strong. Yaakov and Esau, they won't both be strong or both be weak at the same time. Tanya Mar Yehuda Rishana Alakeh Chaimes Mama Oretz Ein Tzarech La'asa. It says initially, if a person bought Chaimes vinegar from an Amaretz, he doesn't have to take Meiser from it. Even though normally we have to take, it's a demand, you have to take Meiser from what you buy from an Amaretz. But over there, in this case, you don't have to because it was not considered to be wine. It didn't have a din of yayin that you have to take meiser on it. So you don't have to take meiser mipnei shechazaka eino elabein temed, because we can assume the chazaka is that it's from temed, it's not from wine, it's not considered wine, it's only considered temed. Temed is made from soaking grape residue in water. So what he's holding is that that's not considered wine. Whatever the juice from the grapes would be bottled into the water, and therefore you don't have to take meiser. But nowadays, after the Churban Abayas, if you take vinegar, if you buy vinegar from an Aretz, you do have to take meiser, because now, after the Churban, then the wine would sour. And therefore, the vinegar is actually from wine. And therefore, you have to take meiser. At the time of the Beis HaMikdash, like we said, that there was a bracha, the wine wouldn't sour. The wine didn't sour, and therefore, the vinegar didn't come from wine. The vinegar came from the temed, it came from temed and not from wine. And therefore, you don't have to take meiser, the vinegar, you don't have to meiser because it's not considered to be from the juice of the grapes. But after the Churban, they didn't have that bracha, and the wine would sour, and therefore vinegar came from wine. So you have to take meiser. So the Achronim point out, we learned before that the vinegar was from adding barley into the liquid, adding barley into it, into the wine, and that's how it would turn into vinegar. So when we're saying over here that you don't have to take meiser, the is talking about a different period or a different era where they would make the vinegar from temed rather than from adding barley into the wine. Because barley added to wine, they certainly would have to take meiser. Well, does he hold that temed, you don't have to take meiser from temed? Tanya, we learned, someone who makes temed, v'nosan mayim b'mida, so he puts a certain measure of water onto the grapes, onto the shmor of the grapes, and now he has the same amount of liquid, so he puts in a certain volume of water and lets it soak with the residue, and then the volume of liquid is the same volume as the water that he put in. potter. He doesn't have to take meiser because there's no increase in the liquid and the volume of the liquid as a result of the grape residue, and therefore it's considered to be water. But Rabbi Yehuda Mechai. But Rabbi Yehuda says it's chai. Rabbi Yehuda says nevertheless it's chai. Rashi points out Rabbi Yehuda L'shit also because Rabbi Yehuda holds that based on the color and based on the color, and we would say that's how we would determine the din, the status of the liquid. So he bases on the color and the taste. So therefore, even if you only have the same volume of liquid, or also that says, generally speaking, we determine the status of a liquid by its color and by its taste. He says, nevertheless, even though it's the same volume, you're chayiv. But don't we see over here that Rabbi Yehuda says that you're chayiv to take meiser from temet? So our answer is Hachi Kamra. What he meant to say is as follows: what he meant to say is not that you don't have to take meiser from the temet because it's not considered wine, it's not considered the juice of the grapes. That's not what he meant. Meant to say is that Rabbi Yehuda said it is considered wine. You do have to take meiser, but since it's not very valuable, then they're not naturally the amaras of not taking meiser. We're chaysha that they don't take meiser where it involves a loss of money, some significant loss of money. Temet doesn't have a great value, so there we're not chayshish. We don't suspect that they didn't take the meiser. Iboy sema nechshedu, and Iboy sema alternatively you can say that they were nechshedu like kasha, it's not a kasha. Ha bedarvaka maha bedapursani. There's a difference in the case that we're talking to. If it's made from darvaka, then we say there it's from the shmorim, then it's considered wine. It's made from the leaves, the shmorim, it's considered wine. You have to take meiser. But if it's only made from the grape seeds, but the purzani, it's only made from the grape seeds, then there's no real juice. There's no juice over there from the grapes. That's not considered wine, and you don't have to take meiser. Another category that the Mishnah talked about that we have to be concerned for chometz is zeisum mitzri. My zeisum mitzri, what is that? Tanur Yosef tiltus, sorry. It's a mixture of a third from barley flour, tilsa kutmi, a third of saffron, a third of milk, and a third of salt. That's that mixture that they made, but you see it has barley in it, so therefore it's chometz. Rapapa says the ingredients, he deletes the barley from the list of the ingredients and he puts in wheat. And simon to remember who said what is sisani. Sisani is a container that's used to hold date. It has two samach. So similarly over here, Rav Yosef as a samach, he said sorry, the sound of a samach, the sin of sorry. Rav Yosef said sorry. He's the one that said barley. So they're similar to the kli, the sisoni that has two samachs. So this zeisum mitzri toru, they take these ingredients and they soak it together, v'kol and then toast them, and v'tachlu, and grind them, and they would drink it. They were from the general time that they would drink it from Pesach till Shuas. The comment marapila, someone who's constipated, so it will then allow him to relieve himself. With the rafim mekamadla, and if someone has diarrhea, it will mekamadla. It will relieve him from the diarrhea. But if a person is sick, or for a pregnant woman, sakana to take this, to drink this. The other list in the Mishnah, the other item that was listed is Zaymem Shal Tzaboim. What is that? And they said that's Maya de Chivri. It's water, bran water. Water with bran was soaked in that water. It's Hagabahu Alabo. And they use it to dye red skins. They use it as a dye for skins. Vamilan Shal Tabachin. Another item listed is Tamilon Shel Tabachim. What is that? That's past Fush Levi Shlish. It's bread made from grain that has not grown a third for its full ripeness. Sheminichan al Pikdera. They put it on the top of an opening of a pot. Veshavas Hazuma, and it absorbs the zuma, the froth that comes from the pot, from the cooking. It absorbs it and it absorbs it into it. So this is another one of the ingredients that have chometz. The Kohen shall Seifrim, and the Kohen of Seifrim, the paste of Seifrim. What is that? Halcha Targima, Peru de Ushkafi. In Boval, they translated as shoemaker's glue. It's the glue that the shoemakers use to attach together the different the parts of the leather. Rav Shimi Mechuzno Amar, he says something different. He says that the Purim shel Bnei Sashirim. It says the paste that the Bnei Sashirim, the wealthy daughters of wealthy people, they use that paste that they use to remove hairs, to remove the body hair. So it's the Purim shel Bnei Sashirim shemeshar Saisol Bnei Saniyim, and they leave it over for the Bnei Saniyim, for the poor, the daughters of the poor people. So the Maram Chalva explains that why is it the leftover ones? Why don't we just say it's this paste that's used to remove hair? It has chametz. What's the difference if it's a shirim, aniyim? So he explains it. He says the Bnei Sashirim, they would use it and dispose of it right away, so it did not have a chance to become chametz. So it's not chametz. But the leftovers they gave to the Bnei Aniyim, to the daughters of the poor, then that was remained and it stayed, that became chametz. So it's that one, the remnants, the ones that were left over for the Bnei Saniyim, that's the one that became chametz. How can you translate it as the Tipulan Shel Bnei Sashirim Shemeshai Shel Bnei Saniyim? Ini Vatana Rabbi Chia, he says Arba Mine Medina in the list in the Mishnah. There are 4 items. 4 of the items are listed in terms of the geography of the place where it comes from. And Shleisha Mine Umanos. And there are 3 that are described as the Umanos, the trades or the crafts, the people that use it. The different Umanos that it's used in the different trades. Now, if you're saying you translate it as the it's not described in terms of a trade. If you say that it's the shoemaker's glue, that's described in terms of a trade, but not if it's Tipun Shebnei Sashirim. So therefore, that can't be. So, well, you're going to tell me that it's a shoemaker's glue, and that's what it means. So if that's the case, why does it say seifrim? It should say ratzanim. It should say shoemakers. Why does it say seifrim? So doesn't seifrim imply that it's not shoemakers? Now, if you're going to say that it's what they use is the Pulim Shabbanai Sashir, how does that answer that? Why is it called seifrim? So the way Rashi explains it is because typically the Bnei Saniyim were seifrim. They were the seifrim who were the Bnei Saniyim. So therefore, it's the Tipun Bnei Sashirim that they left over for the Bnei Saniyim, who were the daughters of the seifrim. That's why it's called seifrim. That's why it's called Penshel Seifrim. But if you tell me that it's the shoemakers, then why is it called seifrim? It should say ratzon. Really, I'll tell you, it is the shoemaker's glue. Umay korelei Penshel Seifrim. And why is it called Penshel Seifrim? The seifrim nami midbuhu nearasayim, because the seifrim also they glue together the different sections of what they're writing on, the paper that they're writing on, or the parchment of the paper that they're writing on. They glue together the different sections of the paper to bind them together. So they also use this type of glue. That's why it's called seifrim.